My name is Kareem Tapsh, and I'm the co-director and co-founder of O Cinema. I'm so delighted to be with you today. As you know, O Cinema is dedicated to showcasing foreign, independent, and art films from around the world. We believe in the power of cinema to change communities and change lives. And our focus has been in films that entertain, educate, and inform. We've had a long and wonderful collaboration with the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany in Miami for some time now. Some of you may remember a few years ago where we did a German film weekend at O Cinema North Beach, showing a lot of films on 35 millimeter, which was a great delight. And earlier this year, we started a virtual collaboration given the times that we're living in. In that collaboration, we kicked off with a wonderful film called Balloon. This year, 2020, marks the 30th anniversary of the reunification between the East and West in Germany. And it's a time of history and also a time of reflection. Some of you had the good fortune, as I did, to watch the lecture and concert that was produced by the consulate just this month, honoring the reunification, and it was a really wonderful event. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to seek it out, and I think we'll be able to share it in our social channels as well. Today, we're bringing a film that we're very excited to be sharing with Miami audiences. ZORO'S Solo is a wonderful film about present-day Germany. It brings in so many topics that are particularly relevant in Germany, but I would say that resonate around the world, and particularly here in the United States as well. This is a film about immigration and integration. It is a film about the immense power of diversity, a film that really speaks to how we grapple with a changing society and what makes our society and who makes our society, and how we confront those changes and either embrace them or reject them. It is also a really wonderful film about the immense power of music to bring us together and to connect us. So for this Q&A, which we're delighted to be hosting, we have two gentlemen that are going to be able to speak to this very directly. First, our great honor to once again welcome the Consulate of Germany in Florida, Mr. Andreas Siegel, and the filmmaker, Mr. Martin Busker, who's joining us from Berlin. Now, I will say that what would make probably most sense is for these two gentlemen to be speaking in German, which is their native language. But since this is for our South Florida audiences, they have been so good. The conversation will be primarily in English. There may be a slip of German here or there, and I think Mr. Siegel is being a great sport and is going to translate it if that's the case. We really hope you've enjoyed watching ZORO'S Solo and you tell your friends and family about it. We at O Cinema are so excited to one day welcome you back in person to the theater. We don't know when that is just yet, but we're going to be focusing on making sure it's when it's safe for everybody to see films the way they were intended to be seen on the big screen. But for now, I leave you with Andreas Siegel and Martin Busker.
Well, thank you very much, Kareem. It's a great pleasure to cooperate once more for a German film to be shown here in Florida. It's one of the most interesting tasks actually in the diplomatic and consular work, rather than dealing with economic and other issues. The bridge building via culture and film and other cultural aspects, I think, is one of the most important and the most sustainable and the most worthwhile. So thank you, Martin Busker, for joining us here. You are not only the director, but also the co-scenario writer, as I understand, of the film. Now, it was mentioned by Kareem, we are now 30 years after unification, and German films have gone through different periods in history. I think we have passed a little bit the period of post-unification movies, and obviously you chose the topic which is quite dominant still in the media and in society today, topic of immigration and how this feels in practical terms in a small town in the southern parts of Germany. But maybe you can tell us a little bit on how you came up with this scenario and what was the impetus of doing this film?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. It's a great honor to be on your great program, and greetings from Berlin in Germany. Well, when I finished film school in 2012, it was my approach to do my first feature film for German cinemas. But there wasn't a theme or a topic that really interested me, that really was burning under my nails, where I knew I can spend 2 or 3 years of my life making this first movie. So I skipped it and started working on German television. I did comedy, TV series, sitcoms. But then suddenly 2015, the refugee crisis started. And then I knew this is the time an artist, a writer, a director has really to wake up and do a movie about it, because as you know, there was a big controversy in Germany. Normally we feel a very common sense in Germany about most of the topics that are on the news and in your daily life. But it started with the refugee crisis, that even among my friends and among my family, there was a big separation. Half of the people liked the idea to show an open heart, to help people that fled from war and terror. And the other half was afraid and wanted to close the borders. And I knew this is the theme I want to make my first feature film about, and started to work on the script.
Well, that of course is sort of the main theme in your film. Another major role, sort of not a character, but a thematic role, is music in the film. I don't know whether many other watchers right now have seen also the film The Chorus. That's the English title. Les Choristes, a French film, which I think was released in 2004, which also has a very strong component of music and the role of a choir, which is decisive for that film. Have you been inspired somewhat by that film as well?
Well, I love that movie, of course, and I really love the music. And when I started to work on the story, I really asked myself, okay, what can bring people together that are very far apart from another? And I wanted to start a movie with 2 people like fire and water, like this very aggressive refugee boy from Afghanistan and this very conservative choir teacher. And I figured out that music is bringing people together all over the world. We all share this experience that music is touching our hearts, and where you stop using your brain and just using your heart. And so for me, it was a non-brainer to do bringing the 2 of them together via music. And a boys' choir was just an idea that this is most likely the least of the things this Afghan refugee boy would do, to join a Christian boys' choir. So for me, it was very important to have a very comic present, a very, very funny premise in the movie to make it easy to get into the theme. And this sounded very funny for me. So we started with it, and it turned out quite good.
Yeah, well, I found it a brilliant idea to have these really so contrasting characters approaching each other during the film. In the beginning, it's quite improbable that they would really meet. The boy also the the language that he's using is the sort of the street language, the gang language, which isn't even in the subtitles in here in the US don't really grasp all the vulgarity that is involved in that. And that in the context of a small town in Germany, I think that's already sort of a very impressive start for the film. And where did you sort of take up this language? Are you sort of involved in social activities where you can meet people who talk like this?
Well, when I started, it was perfectly clear that I cannot just write a movie about refugees, because I hadn't to be a refugee in my whole life. I don't know what they have been through. So it was absolutely clear that I start with a long phase of research. And I started social work in a refugee camp in Berlin, and met a lot of kids for a long time, and tried to find out what they have really been through. Because the most interesting thing for me was that on the first look, these kids were happy to be here. They played ball in the yard. They were laughing, and they were making fun about their home countries and stuff like that. So on the first look, it was really like, where's the problem in their hearts? And then when you when I dig deeper in my talks to them, I really have seen what happened to these kids, which haven't been kids anymore. It was just the first look. They have been really destroyed by war, by their refuge to Germany. They had to be very adults very fast, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and this really struck me. And you asked about the language. They used it a lot. Maybe not in a small town in South Germany, I don't know, but in Berlin, there was a very tough language, and it reflected the pain and the anger they had inside their hearts. And I really wanted to translate that into the film. Well, of course, in my movie, it's how do you say in German? Is it sehr spitz?
It's sort of even sharpened a little bit more.
Yeah, it's sharpened a little bit because well, it's starting as a clashing comedy, and this was a great way to have them both fighting all the time. But it was also a sign of what happened to Zorro in his past.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the language I find also reflects sort of a certain macho culture, of course, which is reproduced in the gangs that he's participating in, and which encounters with the boys in the choir also a quite clashing opposite in behavior and upbringing. In German, we have this English expression "softies." That the boys are really very very nice, nicely behaving, and always respectful children. And of course, Zorro, when he joins the choir, is first the outsider, and only because of his singing qualities he finds himself integrated, actually. So that's a fascinating experience, I think, for both sides. The boys who have never seen probably someone like Zorro before, and Zorro who has never thought that he would be integrated in such a choir.
Yes, and I remember something an Afghan boy told me when I was interviewing him. When we talked about this gay best friend Zorro has in the movie, and to be a softie, as you have said it. He said, when you are a boy like this in Afghanistan, you're just dead. It doesn't work. You have to be a fighter. There are no policemen that you can trust. There's no security on the streets. You have to make sure that you survive. And so these kids already learn to build this hard shell and this attitude like a fighter to just survive. And this really made a big impression to me. And I really wanted to have this in the movie, but I also wanted to break it with bringing him into the choir and see him trying the soft side of him.
Mm-hmm. But I find, I mean, over the whole film, Zorro definitely keeps up his fighting character. I mean, the fact that he's taking a high risk to get his father back, and putting everything else aside just for this unique priority, that finally gains him respect also from the teacher, who recognizes that other than music, there are other priorities in life, and that a fight for your family is maybe worthwhile, even doing things which are out of normal.
Well, it takes a while until she can recognize that at the very end of the movie, that she can feel that. But yeah, this boy has to be a fighter to make that possible, to bring his father to Germany, to reunite his family. He couldn't have done that if he wasn't so strong.
Mm-hmm. But and I would even argue, or I've perceived him even as stronger than his father. I mean, his father had, of course, been suffering from his situation very much, but the fact that when he arrives finally in Germany, the father, he keeps up sort of with habits, or because the situation doesn't allow differently, to play cards with other men. And Zorro at one moment tries to encourage him, hey, you need to do something. You cannot sit here and wait until sort of the world is saving you.
Thanks for asking that, because this is a very, very important part of the movie. And a lot of people ask me, well, this is quite hard to say, well, the fathers who are in Germany just play cards and don't do what they have to do to be a good father for their families. But this is something I have seen a lot in my research, because a lot of men who come from a culture where you're just the king because you are a man really struggle in Germany to integrate just even a little bit. They see their wives and their daughters really rise. This is because this is why I added the little part where the mother is learning to ride a bicycle. For a lot of men, this is absolutely nothing they can accept, that a woman is sitting on a bicycle. So these men come to Germany and they have a really hard time to integrate into our values. And a lot of times this behavior makes it worse for the whole family. So I've been in touch a while with some families where the father was still in other countries or absent for other reasons. And when they're reunited, like after 6 months, the mother has been alone with the kids here in Germany, and then they have been reunited with the father. It was really a road going down. And the arrival of the father destroyed a lot of progress they made in Germany. And I wanted to reflect that in the movie with the scene.
Yeah, I think that that's very important to keep in mind, that the tolerance of integration needs to be on many sides, not just on the two societies that meet, but also within the families, the family structures, the habits, and the upbringing, of course. Everyone has to learn. It's a multicultural learning process. And another group that you portray in the film are these Wutbürger, or these women, these enraged citizens that are protesting against the presence of refugees. What is striking is that they never interact really with them. They just sit there with their signs up and do not take the pain to really try to understand what these people are, what they're doing, what their problems are. And that in contrast to the teacher, who is by the circumstances forced to go more in detail and to look into the circumstances of living conditions and so on, and who recognizes progressively that there is a problem which has to be solved by everyone, and not just cannot be sort of solved only by the immigrants themselves to adapt to the society where they're coming to. So how did you come to integrate this group of women, the enraged citizens there?
Well, I know it's a cliche and it's a very high concept comedy element of my film, but I wanted to portray a couple of people I know. Even among my friends and family, there are quite a few people who really just hate refugees, and they really think that everything bad that happens in their life has something to do with the refugee crisis in Germany, and that people are coming here and taking our jobs and our social security money and stuff like that. And well, just go to demonstrations and write on Facebook what they think. And this was so disturbing for me, to have to delete so many people from my social media that are just frustrated about their own life, and projected onto this crisis, that I wanted to have something like that in the movie, that is like all these Facebook feed pop-ups that annoy you from these people. Yeah.
Well, in Germany, of course, this expression of enraged citizens, Wutbürger, is very much also localized to Baden-Württemberg and Stuttgart, where there was a few years ago a strong protest against sort of reconstruction of the railway station there. But as a matter of fact, that movement has expanded more and more into an anti-immigrant movement as well, which is also reflected in electoral polls and electoral results in Germany on the regional level in particular. So we are of course still in a transition in Germany. On the one hand, this East-West issue is not completely solved. Still discussions about people are feeling sort of as a second-class citizen. But in comparison to immigrants, I think one has to say that German unification among, however, similar cultures, it has been much more smooth than could be expected before. And but what is a little bit curious is that because of that experience of integration of these two different economic, political, military systems over the past 30 years, the understanding of foreign cultures is still, and in spite of the fact that Germans are champions of traveling, Germans are traveling before the pandemic, had been the world champions of traveling. But apparently short-term travel to very exotic countries does not necessarily help understand immigrants when they come to Germany. So it's also one of the characters that you put into this film is the father of Julian, the gay boy, and the father is a policeman who has sort of several conflicting issues with his son on the one hand, but with Zorro and the immigrants on the other. Was this sort of a role which a character which sort of was integrated a little bit later on, or was that clear from the beginning that you needed a policeman in this scenario as well?
In my research, the role of the police came up very often. There's a great mistrust. Is this an English word, mistrust?
Yes.
Against the police, because a lot of people from Afghanistan and Syria are not used to have a police that protects them, but which is very corrupt and more dangerous than helpful. So a lot of refugees often clash with the police, most likely because they don't know what their real purpose in Germany is. So I wanted to integrate a policeman that clashes with Zorro now and then. And first of all, it wasn't the father of Julian, but then the development it made it even funnier and more interesting to bring these two together.
Mm-hmm. What I find interesting is the character development, and in particular, of course, of Zorro and of the teacher, but also of the father, the policeman. They all go through very specific experiences during the film, and so they are all having sort of a trajectory, a path where they're walking towards a new understanding of the others, which I think is a very nice a nice way to portray on how tolerance can be worked out, how you can acquire tolerance, even if you don't understand in the beginning, or even if you don't have that tolerance for others. So
it was very important for me to show character transition on every character. Well, besides of the Wutbürger, the one single lady who is still protesting at the end of the movie. But I wanted to show in my story that this little boy who is very annoying, who has a very big mouth and who doesn't want to integrate himself, is really can be a trigger to help the teacher in her life who is stuck, like the relationship between Julian and his father, who can, with, well, his bad manners, of course, but still can be the trigger to help the people develop in this story. And well, this is a kind of a fairy tale, I know, but I wanted to show the audience to see potential, even when you can't see it on first sight.
Yeah, well, here in the United States, we currently have, as you know, approaching elections, and we have a very sort of divided society also, and the sort of the political camps are very much opposed. Do you think, I mean, immigration aspect actually has not been a main topic here in the US electoral campaigns for various reasons. But what do you think an American public can learn from this film?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I'm very aware of how these two systems in the United States fight with one another, because I have the bad habit of watching CNN and Fox News every evening to get a picture from both sides, and I'm very, very impressed how you can live in that society with these strict divided poles. And this is what I meant, that we have a common sense in Germany, or that we have been used to have a common sense in Germany. This is what I liked all my life about our country, that you can watch the two major news programs in Germany that there are, and they are more or less on the same side. They just tell you exactly the same, just with two different hosts. So I always liked that about Germany. And it took 38 years of my life that I, for the first time, had the feeling that our society is starting to get divided in a very extreme way. And this was the main reason I wanted to make that movie, because I'm absolutely afraid that Germany is going this path also.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is triggered also by the pandemic, the COVID-19 virus?
I'm not sure if the people who fight against the COVID measures in Germany, we have Wutbürger again on the streets who say Corona is a hoax and we don't wear masks and stuff like that. I'm not sure if these are the same people who demonstrated against refugees, but I haven't seen so many people on the streets like this in my life. So yeah, this is maybe the same path. I don't know, but I'm absolutely afraid about that.
I personally liked very much the initiative of a German newspaper, Die Zeit, about a year ago, when they looked for people with really very contrasting political views and matched them together and put them at a table or at a meeting point and recorded their dialogue, and how these people who were willing, however, to talk to someone who is really different came together. And most of these experiences were very positive, that at least the understanding became better. And sometimes even the positions changed. Unfortunately, this kind of thing doesn't happen here. I wish this would be repeated in Germany as well. Because I think one of the problems is that everyone, or many young people in particular today, live in some kind of echo chamber where they only listen to sources which actually reflect what they think already. And I think your film is a good example that you should leave your echo chamber.
Yes, and I wanted to make sure when we started the development of the story that we don't only make the movie for left-wing people who are also already persuaded that it's good to let refugees into our country. I wanted to have parts of the movie for the critical people as well. This is why I made this boy criminal. This is why he is an absolute difficult person in the beginning of the movie, and so it's not only romantic. Yeah, just a little boy who we have really to help. And one little anecdote from a screening in Dresden, where 20 people of the Pegida movement, this is one of the biggest anti-refugee groups, joined the screening, and most likely they didn't wanted to watch this movie, but wanted to disturb the presentation. And I was there with the main actress, Andreas, and we have gotten into a very interesting discussion after the movie. And for some reason, they really liked it. And they said, well, this story is great, and we like the development of the boy. So we really got under their skin. So we have been very happy about that.
Well, so now you have received also some awards and prizes for this film. I think it's still sort of ongoing. The popularity of that film is still spreading. We're counting on doing this here in Florida as well. So what are your next projects? Do you have another big film project, or it's rather more television?
Well, I have to make television because I have to.
Earn a living.
Yes, because when you make movies in Germany, they have to be very, very big movies with big stars that you can really make a living out of that. But normally you do a few television things and then work on a new movie after a couple of years. Well, and with Corona, things got more difficult. A lot of productions have been cancelled. So it was a very, very boring year for me. And right now I'm working on a sitcom for German television, something like the big Disney sitcoms, you know, for teenagers. And this is a lot of fun for me because it's something completely different than ZORO'S Solo. And I started to work with the same team of Zorro, with the same co-writer and the same producer on a new project. And we hope to develop it in the next 2 or 3 years, and then I'm able to make another film.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you have been already very successful with productions for young viewers, like Schloss Einstein. My children watch that, also quite great interest. So, well, we're looking forward to seeing more from you, also maybe later on in another film. So I think our time is more or less running out. Do you still have a message for us which you would like to leave?
Well, I'm absolutely happy that my film is running on this program and that people in Florida are interested in this topic, because we made the film to wake people up, what's like to be a refugee, and how things should develop. In this little fairy tale, well, it's a little bit perfect, but if you can translate a little bit of that for your own life, I'm absolutely happy. And that this is going to America as well and shown to audiences makes me absolutely happy. So thanks so much.
Also, thank you very much for this gift to the American audience. ZORO'S Solo, a film by Martin Busker. Thank you very much for being with us today, and hope to see you soon in another format. Thank you.
Thank you.